Hellboy is a fun, campy detective sci-fi action-adventure film that explores the rich characters and expansive world of the comic created by Mike Mignola, starring Ron Perlman. Wait, we're not talking about the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy that came out in 2004, full of interesting characters and massive world building? I guess we can talk about the 2019 Hellboy, directed by the guy that brought you Dog Soldiers, and written by the producer of Two Guns. At least he was one of the creative minds behind Eureka, so I guess I can't be that apprehensive. Hellboy leaves you asking one pertinent question after viewing it. What the hell did I just watch? I have to say first and foremost that I went to this with very low expectations and a tad bit intoxicated. So I might have enjoyed this film more than I should have for the dumbest reasons. First, let's start with the good things about Hellboy. Oh boy, this was schlock. The tone is much more dark and horrific, having visual style more reminiscent of the thriller horror genre than the sci-fi fantasy style that the old films had. I thought this was more appropriate for a film with a demon hybrid protagonist, and really let the R rating play out in a more disturbing sequence of visuals. The environments were creative, and the practical effects that were used very well. The performances are not terrible for the script that the actors had to work with, and I rather enjoyed some of them embracing the campiness of the whole thing. David Harbour fit the role pretty well, and brought a bit more of a lumbering, moody badass who is just passive enough in his perception skills to get into trouble at every twist and turn. He has some kick-ass action sequences, and the makeup/costume design for him is really well put together. What he brought to the table in presence was lacking in well-crafted dialogue, however. Ron Perlman's Hellboy had dumb one-liners and a corny, sarcastic response to the crazy monstrosities around him, but was endearing in the way that he actually seemed invested in his role as a supernatural crime fighter and detective, and attached to side characters as the plot progressed. This Hellboy is more of a passive protagonist, who is thrown into one scene after the next just to fight things and have creepy interactions with hellish nightmare characters for the sake of shocking the audience with grotesque imagery. He has a small character arc about confronting the reality of who he was born to be and making the choice for himself of who he chooses to be. But it's all explored through this plot of a cliché villain that wants to destroy the world and who barely interacts with Hellboy in the story at all. This is just the start about what doesn't work in this movie, though. It's incredibly poorly constructed, feeling disjointed and sloppy throughout the entirety of the movie. Things just kind of happen to Hellboy. He doesn't pursue any goal related to the main villain's plot. He just falls into it, literally, in the middle of the film, and then is revealed to have a very important tie-in to the historical events that started the villain's motivation in the first place. It feels very ham-fisted, and too extraordinary for the type of movie that this is trying to be. It would have been more effective if Hellboy had to neutralize a threat related to an issue he came across at the beginning of the film. From there could have been a relationship built with him and the antagonist, through personal interaction and struggle. Also, the side characters he's supposed to care about need a deeper connection with him than "I sort of knew you as a kid," or "You're my adopted father and I sometimes work for you out of obligation." They try to do a coming-of-age story thing, but it lacks heart and relationships between main characters. One of the other really glaring issues in the film is the use of really bad CGI effects in some scenes. There's a scene where Hellboy fights some giants, and it just looks really fake. There's a character named Alice that can channel spirits by touching the dead body of a recently deceased person. The issue is they come out of her mouth as an organic-looking corpse, linked to a membrane-like chrysalis-looking substance. It looks so cheap and ugly that it's really hard to put into words what doesn't work about the effect. pretty much any scene involving a lot of green screen is just not that great. I could forgive the bad effects if the story was written better and the characters had any depth to their development, but overall this movie is just a mess. It's a fun mess though. If you like horror thriller movies or mindless action flicks, then grab something to drink, or a substance of your choice, I'm not judging, and have an interesting couple hours of intense visuals of people getting ripped apart and Hellboy fending off demons, giants, and a giant pig monster who has a grudge against him. The whole time that I thought about what to say about this movie, I was thinking of my friend Ben, who was featured in my Shazam Sofa Schmucks video, and his movie grading system. Basically, if something is quality entertainment, it's graded on a scale of 1 to 10. But if it's so bad it starts to be good for how bad it is, it's graded on a scale of -1 to -10. The higher the negative number, the more entertainingly bad it is. And a 0 is just so boring and uninteresting, it's not worth giving a number. With this grading scale in mind, this movie is dumb fun, and for that reason, I'm gonna give it a -5 out of 10.
I interrupt! On the contrary, you've arrived just in time.
This is the shameless part of my video where I beg and plead, please subscribe and like my content. Please.